How you doing? This is Chris with Chris's Comments. Show about common sense on common ground, no matter what the subject. Today's subject, refugees. It turns out we're supposed to be pulling out of Afghanistan by September 11th of this year. And there's already a ton of applicants coming from Afghanistan, citizens that don't want to be there once we move out. There's a lot of people that are, they're going to be suffering from repercussions of supporting the U.S. And so they really want to come back over here with our military. I say, let it be so. This is what I was thinking about when it comes to almost all of the refugees and asylum seekers that just want to get away from the crap that's going on in their own home countries. Now, it sounds dumb because, everybody's first comment or response is, well, why don't they just handle their stuff? Obviously, they can't do that. If the United States has a problem maintaining that country, how in the hell do you expect their citizens to? No, we can't even handle the Latin countries here in the Americas. But yet here we are, sheltering minors and a small number of families while deporting and blocking the rest in accordance to our migrant laws. I don't believe that we should be taking just children, though. I think we should be taking whole families because of the difficulties that it is to actually vet them in. A lot of those in the Middle East, particularly Afghanistan, more than likely don't have their records and stuff stating who they are. And it's more than likely they also, after all the war that's been going on, so many buildings destroyed, particularly concerning information, it's more than likely there's going to be a very big challenge in trying to provide evidence that they're not affiliated with any of the warlords over there, whether it be the Taliban organization or even Al-Qaeda, whatever they are. So just taking, okay, we can accept you, but only one out of every family. Well, that's really not a good thing. Technically, it's not a good thing even with the Latino refugees. However, here in the States, we already have such a huge network connection to Latino communities that although requires patience, it can be accomplished in vetting them in and getting their background check and identifying them. It's way more easier to do, than through past attempts with other countries. The U.S. has had Afghan refugees, Saudi refugees, people who are fleeing ISIS back in the early 2010s. Early to mid 2010s, my apologies, mid 2010s. And it's just so obvious that it's going to be, it was very hard to get them put into our states. It's going to be very hard to get them, the current ones in our state. But, then comes the question, well, where are they placed? Honestly, I mean, we've got so many places that we can shelter the migrants. From what I am told, it's about 100,000 to 500,000 families, not necessarily individuals, but families. And it just makes sense out of the entire country that we would get that many, or should I say that small amount, out of an entire country of Afghanistan. Almost the entire country was against the U.S., But we had supporters. There were business deal makers, you know, and it only makes sense that we take them with us now, that we place them under our care and supervision, you know. But that's just an optimistic view of the handling of the migration of asylum seekers that are going to be coming up come September. Now, the government is already saying, there's a lot of critics that are already saying, we just don't have the time to do all of those, to do the paperwork and migrants. We don't have the costs and we don't have this. As a person that sees things through common sense on common ground, honestly, the cost of doing the paperwork and all this other stuff should be secondary. The focus should be to have all of them jump on board either the military or have military escort them out to, you know, shipping companies, not shipping company, but transport companies that would take them here to the U.S. And obviously, much like a federal witness protection plan, excuse me, sorry about that. Obviously, much like a federal witness protection program, you know, take these asylum seekers and place them in various parts of the country. I'm not a fan of encampments, but if that has to be done, I mean, there are ways that there are locations where you can do this even at 500,000, you know, 500,000 refugees. There are desolate locations, there are mountainous locations. And although this is going to sound harsh, please bear with me on this. State prisons. Now, on a technical level, state prisons are constructed and built, and then after some time, completely abandoned while prisoners are transferred to more secured state prisons, updated state prisons, prisons that have made themselves more secure based off of the fail-safes of the failures, I should say, of previous places. Colorado, for one, has about 11 to 17 state prisons that have been abandoned. They're not being used. That's just Colorado. Texas, now, here in my state, they more than likely are still being used. They've just been used to, less and less crimes and stuff like that. We just have that way of utilizing everything, making use of what we got. However, it wouldn't surprise me at all if there were abandoned state penitentiaries and that we could use them. Also, the one thing that I never really appreciated was transferring migrants and immigrants to our Air Force bases here in San Antonio, especially. Our military bases was used to transport some of the first coronavirus carriers from particularly off of the cruise ship liners that were already over there in Europe. That drove me up a wall. That drove a lot of us down here bat crap crazy for a small while, and rightly so. Yeah, our military bases closed down. Most of them are. We had 5 Air Force bases, 1 medical Army base, and 1 small minor Army base. Now, the 2 Army bases are still being operational. Camp Bullis and BAMC, which is the medical one. We have 2 out of the 5 two or three, no, yeah, 3 out of the five, sorry. 3 out of the 5 Air Force bases shut down. But I think 1 out of the 3 that's still an Air Force base is in links with the private sector. It's called Port of San Antonio. And it's basically an area around one of our bases that has the railroad that goes through it, has a landing strip, and is connected to the city streetwise. Those 3 forms of transportation meet at Port San Antonio. So and it's opened to a lot of commercial industry now, commercial and private sector industries. So that base, it's still technically a base. However, it's being used through the private sector. It's being used like a private sector section of the city. Now that you got the gist of that, to focus back on the migration, obviously I don't believe we should let the asylum seekers stay anywhere near our bases, because of the simple fact that we could see how the Air Force bases, the military bases, especially the shut down ones, can still be used to the city's benefit. However, again, there are abandoned sites where asylum seekers can be transported. I was often confused as to why nobody ever thought about this, even with the migrants from the Latino countries. You know, as far back as El Salvadorians that flocked over here back in 2015. And then you had the Venezuelans who were doing their migration, you know, and yet still vacant areas. It's only now during the pandemic that we've got stuff like hotels being used for the homeless and taking people out of tent cities, which, pardon me again, sorry, which again is still a very reasonable thing, something that I've always thought was a very good idea to begin with, not just for refugees, but for the homeless. Even as far back as when everybody was raising a big stink about the homeless vets, up until Wounded Warriors appeared and started to ease the tension of everybody concerning the care for of the homeless veterans or injured veterans, if not both. So that's my personal comment out there. Chris's comments. It only seems natural to do so in creating shelter, or at least taking in refugees that want to be American, that want to live the free life, as opposed to living in their home country that, where they have the choice of the gun, which side of the gun they're going to be facing. It only makes sense. It's how we're tending to the migrant refugees right now. That's the same choice that's given to them also in the Latino countries. And I wouldn't mind if, despite of its failures with Vietnam, I wouldn't mind seeing America militarizing refugees and assisting them in fighting back against those who are oppressing the civilians and forcing others out. Because let's just be honest, if it's a lie that they're all just coming over here for for welfare, like the way I'm going to bet real money that that's not the case. But if they're telling the truth, they can actually identify and spot and help assist America in spotting, even if it's stuff that we already know, certain tattoos, certain markings that signify who they belong to, all the way down to where they live. Each and every one of those people can testify and give a huge amount of knowledge as to where it is that they started, where being driven out actually began. That's a lot of intel, and it should be put to good use. But that's the Latino countries. The Middle Eastern countries, the Afghanis that are trying to get over here. Honestly, I think they should be very just as considerate with the knowledge as to who's on their side and who isn't, what kind of markings to look out for. As well as the best translations that they can give and education that they can give to our country, and making sure that we stay on top of anybody sneaking in here to pull another 9/11 or to pull another New York City NAFTA building bombing, which took place in 93 or 94, I can't remember. So that's the spiel there. There's refugees that want to come here. I say bring them over. They're not our enemy. They're our friends. Let's bring them over and let them live a good life here. Or let them live the American, corporate American, capitalist American, anti-dictating American lives. Because they're giving up their land, they're giving up their country. They're giving up their country to live here, to live a better life and be productive and all this good stuff. And given the fact that the Taliban has taken over, once we do pull out, it'll be official. I wouldn't want the asylum seekers there anyway. I'd want them over here. So that's the spiel for the day. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And most importantly, stay safe out there. We're still just under halfway of immunizing or herd immunity. I'm sorry. If you can, please encourage others to get the shot. I do that every day in here. So I hope you guys do, because obviously, if we get 2/3, 3/4 of the nation vaccinated, that's a hard-hitting herd immunity. That's a productive herd immunity. All right, y'all take it easy. This is Chris with Chris's Comments. I do apologize for the exhaust. I'm actually very tired. I haven't gotten much sleep lately. But that's another story. Y'all take care. Stay safe out there, okay? Chris of Chris's Comments, out.